chat group today. I'm beginning to like, whoa, you're back for a long way. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. So, but you just, how did your week go? What did we do last week? Communication? Communication. So all of your communication's been fabulous this week. How did it go? What was homework? Remember what homework was?
A lot of stuff.
The 3 questions.
Yeah,
The article. Did you read it? And what did you think?
I remembered it from the I was like, I remember this one. I really like this one.
It's still a good one.
It is still a good one.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It's always, homework talk's always a good one. But I mean, I liked it just in, just kind of reiterated the fact that, we really need to listen and that everybody has like their own perspective and we may not fully understand, obviously, unless we like ask questions and stuff. And one of the things I noticed this week, I was really like paying attention when I was talking to other people or other people were talking to me, just how much people interrupt.
Yes!
All the time. I was like, man, nobody is listening around here. Like,
It's what they're doing with that extra time.
yeah.
They're thinking of their answer, and as soon as they got that in their head, they don't care what you're saying anymore. They just, oh, and by the way, they just
Exactly.
interrupt.
And you don't unless you're consciously like thinking about it, it doesn't even doesn't even process. They're just like, oh, I'm contributing to the conversation. And so they think that they're all in on it. So like, I made it a point to like really try and like wait till the person was done talking and like even let it, have like a second pause or whatever before. And I was like, no, are you done? I jump in and stuff like that. And so it helped for me to just, wait and make sure that I was like fully hearing the person and listening and like understanding them. And one thing that I noticed with my kids is that like one thing I feel like we need to work on with them is like getting them to like express how they're feeling and like in words instead of just like flying off the handle. Like we had a situation yesterday where my daughter, they have the book fair and she bought this like dummy like highlighter like pen thingy, and I had gotten one for my son too like the same day, like just hours before that. And he had it in his hand and she started like freaking out and she was like screaming saying that it was hers and that he took it, and I was like, what's going on? I'm like, I just bought this for him. I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, no, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. And she would never like explain, what had happened or anything until we got her to calm down. And finally we're like, okay, what happened? Let's explain the situation before, any more tears are shed. And so, she explained, she's like, I just had it in my pocket. And my son was like, no, it's mine. And I was like, where did you get it? Go upstairs and look and see if yours is up there. And so he did end up finding his, and that was hers. But it was this whole like song and dance thing that like, it made me realize the importance of like, teaching communication even to our kids. Like if someone, like one of the kids will go up and grab someone else's like toy or book or whatever without like talking, if, we said, go get your sister's book, she's not allowed to read it anymore or something like whatever the situation may be. But, just being able to vocalize and what like a good tool it is to even just being able to like explain yourself and explain the situation or your perspective or anything like that. And so I kind of was like, oh man, I feel like I failed as a mom, like, or that I need to like amp it up as far as like, teaching them that skill. Cause I thought, they kind of know how to like explain themselves, but they don't, like, or they're still learning, I guess I should say, so it was definitely eye-opening to me to just realize, okay, I got to really, hone in and work on and focus on getting them to communicate their feelings more instead of just screaming or crying or whatever.
Well, President Monson was right. May I imagine that? When he said communication is learned.
Mm-hmm.
We're not born with it. The ability to be a good communicator is taught and learned. And it's either taught by example, they just watch, and is reactive, which is what they do, or they just fly off the handle without, because emotionally they're in it and they're charged. So it's either reactive or we teach them, but whatever skills they learn is what they take into marriage. And what becomes that foundation, and a lot of it is learning to take the risk of putting your feelings on the table and feeling like they're safe. So that, and we talked about it with discipline, but it's a fabulous tool to use in communication where you use the timer, the egg timer and turn it, upside down and upside down, and have people like in that example to have had the timer, the little timer, and said, okay, you get to say whatever it is, and then we'll turn it over and you say what you, and then you say, and teach them, because they have how many minutes is that? Is that a minute on a timer? 2 minutes?
It's a 2-minute.
A 2-minute timer. So you have 2 minutes, and they can't yell or scream or cry, but they can, with words, explain. So it forces them to think about and use words. And it's hard. It's a learned thing. It's hard. It's a hard thing.
If they keep crying though, like through it, like you're like calm down, trying to get them to like express themselves, so you just like take the time out, or just like.
No, I would take the time out for them to calm down.
Okay.
Then bring them back to the table, and you need to monitor it. You need to be the moderator there and kind of oversee it, because you're teaching. You're the teacher, and you're teaching them that skill. And so, yes, you stay with them, but they have to be calm enough that they can talk and not scream and cry. So you just let them calm down, and then pull them back up and let them. That's a great practice for communication. That's a great practice for communication.
What would you do as far as like, because I've been kind of mulling over this week, like, as your like spouse, you want your spouse to like be on board with you and like, use the same, skills and tools and like all this stuff, like with communication, like how do you like tell them lovingly without like making them feel like, less of a parent, or I'm not doing it right, or, whatnot, as far as like communication goes, like if you want them to like do it a certain way, or, does that make sense what I'm saying? Does that ever happen? Well, I just feel bad. I was like, I'm trying to like, like help and like, okay, like, let's tone it down a little bit, level 0, He's like, I'm not gonna do that, but, to just, I guess, like help them along the way too, so that they're on the same parenting.
When it comes to adults, when it comes to your spouse,
okay.
You don't get to change them.
I guess I am. I don't know. I'm trying to make it equal for the kids though, so that's like, because I think he feels
100%. You have to be 100% responsible. You can't tell me your intention is good, and so therefore you get to use, bad. You don't get to parent your spouse. Period. Bottom line. Period. So the way you share is, number one, and it sounds like you've done this, and I'm not quite sure how you've done it, but you say, I've learned this in class, whatever it is, and I'm going to really start trying it with the kids. So it'd be wonderful if you wanted to help me, but I'm not good at this, so I'm just going to start trying this. And now you've introduced him to the fact that you're going to be changing. And you're actually soliciting his support in your change, but you're not asking him to change. You're just saying, you're sending an iMessage, I've learned this, and I'm going to try it, and I'm not very good at it, and I'm probably going to do, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. And so I just need you to help me, because this is something I really want to learn how to do. And you leave it there. And it's just like, he can't lose weight for you. But you can ask him to help you, like, please bring me an apple instead of chocolates. But you can solicit help, but you can't, nor can you lose weight for him. You can't make him. So that's agency. That's agency in its true form. And so if you want to have a really happy marriage, don't parent your spouse. That's kind of a bottom line.
Open the car door and you're like, don't hit the other car next to you. Like, I find myself like saying that sometimes, like, don't watch out for the car. And he's like, I'm not a kid. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's like habitual because you're so used to saying it to the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really bad at that.
Yeah.
My week was a little different. This is something my family struggles with big time, and I felt like Satan worked on us probably overkill this week, because I found where I finally just had to say to my husband, you know what? I am trying something I learned in my parenting class, and if you don't agree with how I'm doing it, that's fine. I'm still doing it because this is something I want to try. And I need you to just let me do it. I'm not trying to tell you how to parent. You need to quit telling me how to parent. And it was in regards to his child that likes to just push my buttons. And one of the things that I asked all of my kids this week was, it really hurts mom's feelings when she works her behind off every day to make us dinner and somebody complains, because it's inevitable, whether it's my husband or my 4 kids. Somebody doesn't like what I made for dinner. And I said, just eat it. Just eat it and, complain amongst yourselves later instead of making mom feel bad. Because I keep trying to explain to him, I'm working, which I haven't done in a long time, and I'm trying to keep our house clean and feed us so that we're not eating at 9 o'clock at night. And I had 3 of them at the dinner table last night. I'll make some comment, and I just kind of blew. And then I went, okay, I'm not being a good communicator. Let's go down and try this again. So I had to go give myself a timeout. And I came back down and I explained to them how it makes mom feel when, somebody doesn't like it. And I said, I know you guys don't like certain things, but I can't eat spaghetti every night of the week, and I can't eat pizza. Mom has to eat something that's healthy. So we came up with something where they each get to pick a meal once out of the 14 days that is something that they like, and I said, if somebody complains, it's going to be directed at you because you're the one that chose it. Well, we're not going to do that to each other. And my husband just went, so why do you do it to mom? And so it was interesting to sit and communicate, because I don't always say to my kids, I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
And so I think they finally understood, because I was finally able to communicate and they all listened. And so it just opened up a really cool dialogue, but I felt like the couple of times that every time I tried to do something, or I tried to be a better listener, or I tried to communicate something to one of my kids, I felt like Satan was just there needling, because that's probably the biggest area that we struggle with. And I called my husband this morning and I said, okay, I don't think Satan wants me to go to Sister Tanner's parenting class this morning. He's like, why? And I said, because I've locked my keys in the car twice. And I locked them in with the engine running one time, because I was trying to help my twins find something. And I said, my 7-year-old twins they were being just very out of the ordinary naughty. And I went, okay, I just want to go back to bed, curl up in bed and not go. He's like, you have to go. And I said, I know, I will end up going. But I just feel sometimes that's our biggest struggle as parents, is just like, she was saying, Satan is just trying to wedge his way into our family. And it's
Yes, he
so
is.
hard sometimes when, you want to do good and you want to try and do all of these things. And then he's just, you have this extra little companion you just don't want there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. His goal is to destroy families. And the harder you try to make your family good, the more he will try to derail it. Absolutely. I love that after you expressed your feelings, you came to problem solving. So what would we do? You came up with, they can each pick a meal and so that's what they can. I think that's wonderful, and that's what communication's all about.
Yeah.
Is to stick with it until you can problem solve. Make it good. So that's great. That's great.
And I do like the articles that you have us read, because I can just leave them on my husband's chair. And occasionally he will read them. And occasionally he'll come back going, man, I don't remember that conference talk. That one was really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I can't make him do it.
But see, and that's another great way to share. It's just to sort of, have them leave the conference talk available. I mean, that's a great way. Or even to say, this is what we're reading. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I left that poem that you have in here, that listen one, on his chair. And I went to bed because I had a migraine last week. He came up and woke me up and he's like, why did you leave that on my chair? And I said, because this is something I'm really trying to work on.
Good. Taking ownership. Good.
And I said, I just wanted you to kind of understand where I'm coming from. And he knows that I'm a bad communicator. I grew up with parents that never communicated. They never argued in front of us. So I didn't know.
You don't know how to do it. Yeah.
I saw my grandparents argue occasionally, because my grandma would kind of get my grandpa, who was the most patient man on the planet, would occasionally ruffle his feathers a little bit, and they just kind of, but it was never loud voices. And so, I went, okay, my kids need to know that there is conflict in marriage, that there isn't,
Yes.
nobody's perfect.
Yes.
And that was something that I said last night to my kids. I'm like, guys, mom is not perfect. I said, who is the only perfect person? And my little 7-year-old goes, well, it's Jesus, duh. I went, okay, I'm glad you get that. He just looked at me like, why are you asking that? You know the answer.
Yeah.
But it kind of made, I think it made my teenagers go, okay, mom's just not a raging lunatic all the time. She does get her feelings hurt too, and so we need to, learn how to communicate as a whole in a, family and be more open to discussion and not raise our voices and lose our tempers. But it's okay if we do, because, we just need to go, okay, time out.
Yeah, and come back and resolve.
One of my little kids last night looked at me and said, where did you go? And I said, Mom needed a time out. And she just giggled. She's like, why'd you need a time out? You weren't being naughty. I said, well, Mom was just her temper was kind of going, oh, okay. So I think
Which also impresses them because now they know you're really serious.
Yeah.
I mean, you took a time out and they go, you really were, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You had a comment.
Oh, I'll have a moment this week.
Wonderful.
I think last week I had mentioned to you about with our spouse how we get them to just listen rather than be the fixer. And I realized I'm doing that with my kids when they come home from school, rather than just letting them tell me and vent and talk, because we always have talk time afterwards. If there was a problem on the playground, I always give them advice and this is what you should do, and I just need to let them. Sometimes it just goes away on its own and just listen.
Or you ask the question, what will you do? What do you think what do you think you would do next time if that happened again? What do you do?
That rather than saying, we should do this.
Yes.
We need to do
Yes.
this, and
Yes.
Anyways, I was being their fixer rather than just listening. So
Isn't that interesting?
So this week I just chilled and just tried to zip my lip and just.
Was it hard?
It was hard. It was really hard because the mama bear in me just wanted to tell them what they should do or
Make it safe and comfortable and save them. Yeah, mama bears like to do that. And we're good at it. Really, quite frankly, we're good at it until they become teenagers. And then we have problems with it.
I was gonna, I did not do as good with, I wanted to really do those stupid 3 questions and I completely forgot. I needed note cards or something. But I did think about, how I am when I'm talking to other people and, you'll get in a conversation and you just kind of naturally steal the conversation and start talking about your thing, and then they steal it back, and it just kind of happens like that. And I tried to be super aware that when I did it, I'd recognize that I was doing it, and so I would finish what I was saying and take it back to them with a question.
Good job!
I'll finish telling you
Good
about
job!
blah blah blah.
Yes.
You go on these huge detours, and so I try to be really good about bringing it back and handing it back to them. And so I'm still an interrupter, I think, but a nice one. But I try to revert it back to them because there's no stopping it once you're already all in the conversation. But so I try to be really good about that. And I noticed, a bigger difference in my listening because I was attentive, even though I interrupted, I was still attentive to bring it back to them.
Yeah. I got to put that in my notes. A nice interrupter. A nice interrupter. That's a good one. That's a good one. Anyone else have a? Yes.
My
Yes.
favorite comment at church was listening to these 2 ladies talk, and I heard one of the ladies, well, I have a better story than that even.
She said that?
Yes, and I don't think she was even thinking what they're just in the conversation, and she said something, and then she just was like, oh, well, anyway, it was really funny, and it just was like, oh my gosh, it kills me to hear this thing,
Well, when you're listening for it and you're aware of it, and then they do it so blatantly, well, I have a better story. You go, who's this conversation about? It's just interesting. Once you become cognitive of it, to see how many people interrupt, and when people interrupt you, to see how it makes you feel. Because you do, you feel cut off. You feel like they're not really interested in what you're saying. And a lot of times, after their comment, you don't want to continue with,
What you were going.
yeah, with what you were saying because you feel like you weren't interested anyway. So, yeah. Anyone else? It's always interesting to have this lesson and see how you do with your spouse. That creates a different dynamic than communicating with your children. You know, so I don't know if any of you tried it with your spouse. You see, you got to use good communication with your
I know,
spouse.
apparently I have a lot of work to do.
Anyone else want to share? Just remember, good communication is a learned skill. Therefore, it's something we need to teach our children. We need to teach it to our children. Because they will have disagreement in marriage. It's part of mortality. It's part of living here. It's part of being here. And if they choose just to withdraw from those disagreements so that we don't fight, we never fight. We just walk away from disagreement. That does not build strong relationships. Though they can say in a marriage, well, we never fight. It doesn't mean there's closeness. Closeness comes when you actually do have differences and you discuss them and you learn to understand one another and you talk them through. That's what breeds closeness. It's not walking away from differences and just saying, well, we won't argue. It's learning how to communicate through them. So it's a skill that needs to be learned. And it's a skill that needs to, not only from us to our children, but sibling to sibling. They need to learn to talk with one another. So it's a great lesson. Okay, anyone else want to comment before we go into the heavy stuff of today? You all know what we're talking about today, so we're going to get into it. But before we get into it, I have to share with you this, one of my things. Somebody sent this to me, emailed it to me. One evening, a grandson was talking to his grandmother about current events. I just want you to know that I'm the grandma, okay, in this story, meaning as you look at me and my age, we're talking about a person actually who's younger than I am by 5 years. I won't tell you when they're born. Actually, it's 4 years. One evening, a grandson was talking to his grandmother about current events. The grandson asked his grandmother what she thought about the shootings at schools, the computer age, and just things in general. The grandmother replied, well, let me think a minute. I was born before television, penicillin, polio shots, frozen foods, Xerox, contact lenses, Frisbees, and the pill. There were no credit cards, laser beams, or ballpoint pens. Man had not invented pantyhose, air conditioners, dishwashers, clothes dryers. Clothes were hung out to dry in the fresh air. And man had not walked on the moon. Your grandfather and I got married first, then lived together, and every family had a father and a mother. After I turned 25, I still called policemen and every man with the title, sir. Serving in the country was a privilege. Living in this country was a greater privilege. We thought fast food was what people ate during Lent. Draft dodgers were those who closed front doors as the evening breeze started. Having a meaningful relationship meant getting along with your cousins. If you saw anything made in Japan on it, it was junk. We listened to big bands, Jack Benny and the president's speeches on our radios. We never heard of FM radios, tape decks, CDs, electric typewriters, yogurt, or guys wearing earrings. Pizza Hut, McDonald's, and instant coffee were unheard of. Ice cream cones, phone calls, rides on a streetcar, and Pepsi were all a nickel. Grass was mowed, Coke was a cold drink, pot was something your mother cooked in, and rock music was what your grandmother sang the baby to sleep by. Software wasn't even a word. We were the last generation to actually believe that a lady needed a husband to have a baby. We volunteered to protect our precious country. No wonder people called us old and confused and say there is a generation gap. How old do you think this lady is?
40.
Oh, I love you. I love you. I love you. You just got an A+. You aced it. She was born in 1952. So that makes her 65. 65. Yeah. So when we talk about how quickly society has changed, it literally has been in my lifetime. So the way I raised my kids was without cell phones, without the gaming, without InstaChat and Facebook, and without computers. We didn't have computers. So, or they were just starting up. And you certainly, when they first said you could walk down the street and watch a movie, my thought was, you've got to be kidding me. And now it's just nothing. It's nothing. I couldn't comprehend how all telephones were attached to a wall somewhere. And so they're saying you can, have phone calls as you are out driving around or walking on the street. And I thought, no, that has to be attached to a wall, And so all of these things have, and they were rotary dials. Yep. You got it. Now you're knowing where I came from. So all of these things have come quickly over a short period of time, and particularly the electronics. And I think one of the problems that we have with even the immorality and the electronic problems is that it's happened so fast that we haven't kept up with the ability to control it. Therefore, it is spiraling out of control, which is Satan's plan anyway, is to get it to be in a place where it destroys the families. And the abuse of such things destroys family. But the intent, the Lord helped these things be invented. And so the intent is to hasten the work of the Lord. So it's not appropriate, it's not good to say, well, we're just going to do away with that in our home. We just don't want to do that in our home. So there will be none of that. Because the Lord has given these inventions for a purpose, and it's His purpose. So the goal is to teach to the purpose of the Lord and help our children and our families understand the purpose and to work to that purpose. Now, the problem is they are surrounded by the downside of these inventions all day, every day of their lives. And so we are teaching good gospel principles at home, and they're going to church and they're going to seminary, and we're doing things that they should do. And yet, too often with our kids at school and in this other environment, they have been taught about virtual identities, the virtual realities. And so it's like at home and at church, they're one person and they put on what's expected there. But at school and maybe among friends and when they're out hanging out, they take on a different identity, this virtual reality kind of identity, so that they can be accepted and liked and part of that peer group. And I think that a lot of them are very confused about even who they really are. And what we need to do as parents is help them to have one identity, that they are one. That's called integrity, that you are what you say you believe. It isn't that I give these answers here because that's what's expected, and I do this here because it's fun and I can be popular and be part of the group. But these are such total opposites that it doesn't take long for them trying to live this dual personality before they really have conflict within themselves about who they are, and they won't have peace and they won't have happiness because there's no integrity in their lives. It doesn't come together. Let me share with you a story. This is one of my, I love this story. Well, maybe I'll share it with you, maybe I won't. Oh, here it is. This was given by Neil Anderson, Elder Anderson. It was before he was called to be an apostle. It was when he was still in the Quorum of the 70. So it's been a while. Actually, it's in 1999. And it's called, it's October Conference, 1999, Andrea. It's called Prophets and Spiritual Mole Crickets, if you want to put the link to that. It is just a fabulous story. And this is the problem that we are facing in our homes. And this is the story. It says, our family lived for many years in the state of Florida. Because Florida has a high concentration of sand, lawns are planted with a large broadleaf grass we called St. Augustine. A formidable enemy of the Florida lawn is a small brown insect called a mole cricket. One evening, as my neighbor and I stood on the front steps, he noticed a little bug crossing my sidewalk. You better spray your lawn, he warned. There goes a mole cricket. I had sprayed the lawn with insecticide not too many weeks previously, and I hardly felt that I had time or money to do it again so soon. In the light of the next morning, I examined my lawn closely. It was lush and beautifully green. I looked down into the grass to see if I could see any of the little bugs. I could see none. I remember thinking, well, maybe that little mole cricket was just passing through my yard on the way to my neighbor's yard. I watched my lawn for more than a week, looking for signs of invaders, but none was evident. I congratulated myself that I had not overreacted to my neighbor's warning. The story, however, has a sad ending. I came out the front door one morning, about 10 days after the conversation with my neighbor. Shockingly, as if it had happened overnight, brown spots covered my lawn. I ran to the garden store, bought the insecticide, and sprayed immediately, but it was too late. The lawn was ruined, and to return to its former state required a new crop of sod, long hours of work, and a large expense. My neighbor's warning was central to my lawn's welfare. He saw things I could not see. He knew something I did not know. He knew that mole crickets lived underground and are active only at night, making my daytime examinations ineffective. He knew that mole crickets did not eat the leaves of the grass, but rather found nourishment in the roots. He knew that these little inch-long creatures could eat a lot of roots before I would ever see the effect above the ground. I paid a dear price for my spunk independence. The reason I love this story is because I think too often in our homes, we look at our children this way. Do you love it when he said in the story, I had sprayed the lawn with insecticide not too many weeks previously and hardly felt I had time or money to do it again so soon. How often do we have a talk or a family home evening or a discussion and think, this child can't be into pornography. We just had the talk and I don't see any signs. So he can't be. And then all of a sudden, we check the phone, their phone and their YouTube and the history of all of the sites they've been on, and we say, oh, how long has this been going on? And you find out it's been going on for a year. So just because you don't see signs doesn't mean that there's not a reason to teach and train and continually be bringing to them the values that will protect them. I think that we have to be constantly aware and constantly vigilant, remembering that a lot of times the early warning signs aren't necessarily seen as much as you're told by the Spirit, by the Holy Ghost, that these things are happening. And you'll just have a feeling about one of your kids. You won't necessarily know what it really is, but that's the warning. That's the neighbor saying, you need to spray again. That's the Lord saying, this person, this child is in need. And you may not know, you may not see at the moment what the need is, but pay heed to those warnings. And sometimes we get this feeling that our kids are, because we have family home meeting, because we have family prayer, and because they go to church, because they go to seminary, that they live in a protected bubble. They are still tempted. They are still being exposed to the days say that by the time a child is 8 or 9, they will have been exposed to pornography somewhere along the line. So even though you're very careful about not having it in your home and protecting your family at home, they will have been exposed to, at some degree, whether it's somebody else's phone at school or a magazine or in a locker room. You know, you can pretty much count on the fact that by that age, they will have had an experience. And that doesn't mean that they'll tell you about it or that you're going to know about it. It just means that they really are going to have that experience. The story was told, and let me share with this, was told by Elder Harbison when he was a 70. And I'm sure that you remember it. Now, remember, when your children are facing some of these temptations, when they want the cell phone, and they're not even tempted by anything bad yet, they just want the cell phone because everybody else has had their cell phone, and they beg you, and please, Mom, please can I have it? Please, Mom, please can I have it? Everybody has one but me. And say, well, okay, you know. Remember this story, because these are your kids. The Indian boy listened. Oh, he's talking about I have never forgotten the story that Elder Robert Harbison told in this tabernacle pulpit. He spoke of an Indian boy who climbed a high mountain. It was cold up there, and at his feet was a snake, a rattlesnake. The snake was cold and pleaded with the young man to pick it up and take it down where it was warmer. The Indian boy listened to the enticings of the serpent. He gave in. He gathered it up into his arms, covered it with his shirt. He carried it down the mountain to where it was warm. He gently put it on the grass. When the snake was warm, it raised its head and struck the boy with its poisonous fangs. The boy cursed at the snake for striking him as an answer to his kindness. The snake replied, "You knew what I was when you picked me up." Now, what happens when we give our children access to unlimited screen time, phone time, internet use, because they beg and they promise and they plead and they say, I never will and I won't, and everybody else has it, and truly everybody else does have it, and then a year later they're revolting against you, and they're revolting against everything that you've taught them that is right, and they become hard to discipline and hard to parent and hard to handle. In this story, I love this story because, number one, if the boy had taken charge of the situation in the beginning and hadn't picked up the snake because he knew what it was, the problem wouldn't have happened. And this is the lesson for us. We have to take charge in the beginning. After the mole crickets come, after you've been bitten by the snake, does it mean you can't get it back to healthy? No, you can sometimes. But just like the lawn, it requires a great deal of energy and a great deal of effort and a great deal of time and a great deal of sacrifice, money, it's hard. It doesn't mean it can't happen. Don't get me wrong, and don't give up if you know people that are already there. Don't give up and don't quit. But don't be surprised either that it's a hard process now. So the key is to start early. To start early on. I love the chapters in the Book of Mormon where Moroni is fortifying the cities, and he fortifies them in a time where they're not at battle. So he doesn't wait till the battle comes and then he fortifies. He fortifies before they're at battle with the Lamanites. And do you remember what he did to fortify? What did he do? He what?
Dug up walls.
Well, he dug the trenches, and then he put the walls up, and then what did he do? Then he put the pickets on top of the wall. Yes, so that they had all the power. They had one entrance into each city that was guarded at night, and they had watchtowers that were there all the time. All the time. Now, taking that as our lesson, we need to put up the defenses before the problems attack, meaning if you can do it before your children are curious about these things, that you have your defenses up. We'll talk about what the defenses are, but that they're there before you need them. That's the key. But then it's to maintain that vigilance. It's not to put them up like the one-time thing. Well, I sprayed it once. I talked to him once. It's to maintain the vigilance. Now, if you go into Jacob, chapter 2-ish, around 2, I think it's 2-ish, verses maybe 4-ish, 5-ish. It's right there on the column of my book. I can see it. It's right there. And then I think it's Jacob chapter 2. He's talking to his people. Now Nephi's died, and now he's the prophet. And so he's talking to the people. And what is very interesting about him, about this talk that he's having with them, first of all, he talks to them about how pride's getting in the way and they're loving money too much. And then he says, but that's not the worst part. The worst part is that you're beginning to think. Sin is beginning to start in your minds and in your hearts. So the temptations to our children, before they act it out, comes in their thoughts and then transfers to hearts, feelings, wanting to understand those feelings, curiosity, maybe where it starts, having thoughts about what is that and what is it like, and what do the drugs taste like, and what does pornography look like, and what are they talking about, and what are these people, what is that site that everybody is talking about? It starts in their thoughts and then transfers to behavior. And then it becomes addicted. They become addicted. Now, there's lots of good articles on LDS.org about how to help them and how to help create this fortification. What to do after. There's a fabulous talk that I read about an article about a woman who they had found out that their son was into pornography and how they handled it, and it was exceptionally good. I don't have it here, but I'll give it to Andrea, and she can share it with you. But there's things that we can do before. So the most important thing that you can do in your home is to be 100% committed to virtue. There is not a double standard. There's not a double standard. It's the Lord's standard or it's the world's standard. And you don't graduate to being able to put aside some of the feelings of the world because you become 21 or you get married and you move out of the home. If a movie is not good for an 8-year-old to see, it is not good for a 28-year-old to see. Because we say, well, you just wouldn't get it. It's too violent. It's too, there's too much innuendos about sexual things, and you just wouldn't get it. Well, once something is imprinted on your mind, it's not like graffiti on a bathroom wall that you can repaint the bathroom. When something comes into your mind, whether it's at 8 or 28, you don't erase it. It doesn't go away. So the only safety is not to put it there. Now, I don't remember if you remember, and I'm saying this because it happened quite a while ago, but if you remember the movie about, what was it?
You gotta give us something.
Oh, the vampire movie. Twilight movie. Oh, I'm thinking vampires' teeth. What's the word? Vampires. The vampire movie. If you looked at the rating of that movie, it was, it talked about sexual morality, immorality, sexual content and nudity and, that was, if you went online and looked up the ratings for that, that's what it was. If you go to the Strength of the Youth and read what what our standard is for media and entertainment, it says that anything, we do not attend, view, or participate in entertainment that is vulgar, immoral, violent, or pornographic in any way. In any way. That's what the Strength of the Youth says. So we teach our children that this is our standard. Now, there were, and I'm using this as an example because it's so long ago, there were mothers that were taking their daughters to see that movie because it was the thing. They were reading the books together, and then we'll read the book together and then we'll go see it. Now, do you see the hypocrisy here? If we're saying, but this is my standard for you, but we're just going to go see this, but I'm going to go with you, so it'll be okay. Well, it's not okay. That's not okay. Do not attend, view, or participate in entertainment that is vulgar, immoral, violent.
Every movie out there right now. Every movie.
But these are your heroes. They're saving the world. They're the Supermans, the Batmans, the Wonder Womans, but they're high adrenaline, and they're exciting, and they're, they get the blood flowing and the adrenaline pumping. Are those kinds of feelings conducive to the Spirit? So those are just questions, and I'm not telling you what to go see or not to go see, but I'm just saying, if this is the standard, then it seems like we're teaching our children this is their standard, but our standard's different because we're adults. And the standard cannot be double. or children will not feel like it's valid. So then living the gospel becomes just if it's convenient, you know, if it works out, if it's, you know, I really believe the gospel's true. I really, 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 really believe the gospel's true. But I can go to violent movies. You know, that's okay because.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot. My kids are 15 and 13. But I'm getting a lot. Well, we aren't going to do that. That's just a movie.
Yes.
I'm like, really? You become what you watch.
No, we only become what we eat.
That too. But
I mean, you know, that
that's what they're
the world
saying,
accepts
you know?
that because we're kind of on this health kick. Everyone's be healthy. So we know we are what we eat. But we really say we're not what we want. You know, so then you're bringing in violent gaming and violent movies. We feed a constant diet of this to our, I wouldn't say just youth, to all of us. I mean, it's out there for everybody. I mean, the programs on TV, you see where I came from. There wasn't TV when I was born. Actually, it had been around a couple of years, but there really was no TV then because now, and then we went through the Leave It to Beaver. You know, is that just what you said? I Love Lucy, yeah. And, you know, and now people watch that and go, oh, that's so lame. It's just not exciting. And so, you know, the TV was on the other night. We were watching the news, and there were trailers about the new series and stuff that was starting. And I was appalled. I'm not just watching a trailer. I am not watching the thingy of the homosexuality. I mean, we are really pushing it to make it just the norm. And so we're going to depict it as the norm, and we're going to couch it in humor. We're going to make it a funny situation. And because the more common we can make it, the more acceptable we can make it. Now, when I went to school, that was just plain not accepted. Now, it's become just a choice. You see, when everything is just a choice, there's no sin. Everything's just a choice. And we have to teach there is sin. Heavenly Father teaches us there's sin. Now, we can repent of sin. We can repent. And actually, I guess most things are a choice. We have our agency. But there are consequences, eternal consequences, that go with choices. And that's because our families, and I say whole families, not just our children, are so inundated with this that it becomes common. Your movies on TV, I mean, the police movies and the fire engine movies and the Secret Service kinds of, I don't even know what they are, but they're there because you just see the little trailers, and they are just, even in a trailer, it's graphic violence, just graphic violence that's on them. So as our children are exposed to these, it desensitizes them. So it's harder and harder for them to be able to discern between that which is right and that which is wrong. The wrong, remember the last days, the wrong will look good and the good will look evil. And that's where we are. We're making homosexual and that gay movement look like, well, it's okay. It's okay. We're making wrong look good. And if you don't agree with it, then you are evil. And our children feel that. So how are we going to teach morality?
So this morning I was looking through the news stuff, and it talked about how a college student just got kicked out of his class, like Indiana or Illinois or something like that, because he was adamant that there are only two genders, male and female. And the college professor kicked them out of the class. And I saw that, and I, had my thoughts, and obviously support that student, but I decided to share that with my children. I'm like, you're not going to believe what I just read. And they're like, what? And they're 9 and 14. And I'm like, this college kid, and I told them what happened. And I'm like, well, what do you guys think about that? The 9-year-old was like, that's ridiculous. There's only 2, girls and boys. And I'm like, I know. But that is not what the world sees. The world is trying to change how it works. And I'm like, what is the whole point of how can you have families? You have to have a man and a woman to create children. And the world is trying to take that basic truth away. And we just had a discussion about it because it was present, and I, just felt prompted to just have this discussion. I don't want to talk to them about how guys can become girls and girls can become guys. I don't want to bring it up into their world. But
Not
they
yet.
have to be aware
Yes.
of all of those choices, and we did discuss it. We discussed how is there another gender? And I'm like, there's a whole bunch of different ways that people have decided, and it was just a very I allowed each of them to state their truth and their what they really think about it. What do you think? And how would you feel if someone came up and told you had to believe differently? And they're like, no, we want to believe this. I'm like, you hold on to that. You hold on to that. Don't let them.
See, this is perfect. These are putting up your fortress right now.
Yes.
This is where you have to be ever vigilant, and you have to talk about these things. But you're talking about it in teaching, because for every one time that you talk about it, they are being hit by thousands of Satan's messages. So we cannot give them the talk once and assume that they are good forever. They are not. I was just reading, and I taught Relief Society on Sunday, and one of the quotes I took, and I'm sorry, Andrea, I'll give it to you, but I don't. It's on page 6 of that conference enzyme. But it was Robert E. Hales, and he made the quote. It was something, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but he said, we look at the pioneers and just think, man, I couldn't have done that. I could not have done that. He says, we will go through equal. We're going to do it. We're going to go through those kinds of tests and trials. And part of it is that exact thing. The church, because of our beliefs, will be equally persecuted. So will you stand? Or will you go to where it's more peaceful? Are you going to stay in Missouri, or are you going to walk the plains?
I was going to say, when you started talking about putting up our defenses before the attack, my first Relief Society broadcast ever was President Hinckley giving the proclamation on the family. And I remember sitting there going,
What?
is this?
What? Yeah.
What is this?
Everybody knows that's a family.
This now, and now as a parent, I'm going, oh my heavens, I'm so glad we have this, that we can teach our kids. Because, I have family members that are gay. And, my family has tried to be supportive of this particular individual, but, he wants nothing to do with most of us because he's like, well, your church just preaches against people like me. And I'm going, I grew up with you. I'm always going to love you. Maybe I don't like your choice, but to sit and just, tell me that my beliefs are wrong when I'm loving you even though you have your own beliefs. I mean, sometimes you just want to shake people.
But that's the way it's going to be.
That's the way it is.
Yeah.
And so I sometimes, and I have kids that are in high school and kids that are in elementary school, and I work in an elementary school, and I'm appalled at what I hear in the hallways in elementary school.
Oh, yes.
In 5th grade.
Oh, yes.
And I sometimes go home and go, okay, can I just wrap these 2 little 7-year-olds in a bubble and just keep them at home with me? Because I'm not sure I can have them out in the world. I'm like, if I tried to pull my older boys home to homeschool them, I might end up feeding a few of them.
But they're already in the world.
But they're already in the world. That's why I seriously just want.
And what's interesting about it being in the world is that the gay philosophy, or this, all of this is, we're to understand them, but it's not, we're wrong. They won't understand that we don't believe that or accept it. So that's where the conflict's going to come with our kids, is we have to help them be strong enough to stand for what they believe, plus love and be tolerant. Yes?
And I think I was kind of sheltered growing up. My parents did a really good job, but they did a really good job about communicating about uncomfortable things. I had some friends whose parents didn't talk to me about anything, but so I felt like I had a good upbringing. And my mom, I was actually talking to her the other day, and she's the head nurse for St. Luke's Abuse Center for all the abuse in Boise. So every abuse case goes to her and the doctor on site. So there's all the police, the law enforcement, social workers are all on site with this medical staff. And she just said, and she says this to me a lot, she goes, Callie, times are changing. And she says it's just so important that you educate your children early about their bodies even. And she goes, I think sometimes, LDS mothers are nervous to talk about those things. And, we didn't really feel like we had to 30 years ago start so early in talking about these things. And she says, but I see LDS children, I see all children, and they don't even know. We have to figure out before we can even do the exam if they know what parts they've got. And I just, when she tells me these things, I'm like, but it does make me uncomfortable. But it has shown me that, it is important to educate our children so they know about their bodies, and times have changed. And, the other day I picked up a Friend magazine, and I haven't gotten a Friend magazine in years. And I was looking at it and I was shocked because I saw this article about pornography in the Friend.
In the Friend, yes. Yes,
And
yes,
I
yes.
told my mom, I'm like, oh my gosh, the church is even evolving in that way.
Oh, yes.
Growing up, I would have never seen an article in a Friend like that.
Well, if they've been exposed by the time they're 8, they're in primary.
Right. And so I think I am realizing, because I guess I am sheltered, that we do need to be the ones to talk.
Well, we live in this bubble too.
Yeah.
And we kind of,
Yeah.
let me, one of the things that Satan is using against parents and kids is the rationalization. How many times that, we want to go see that movie, there's only one bad scene in it. There's only one, or there's only a little bit of it that's bad. If there's a little bit of it's bad, it's bad. It's bad. Because it can never be erased. It can never be wiped away. It can never go away. Yes?
In one of my seminary classes, I remember my teacher teaching this principle he had a glass of lemonade, and then he had brought in a little thing of pee. And he only put 3 drops of pee in this big glass of lemonade. He's like, okay, now who wants to drink? It's this huge glass of lemonade. There's only 3 drops of urine in, you're not going to taste it. It's not going to, change the taste. But that has always,
Absolutely.
came back to my mind.
Well, so what I want to do is, what you said is exactly right, Callie. And what I'm going to do is, first of all, I want you to understand the key to your family is teaching doctrine. The key is teaching doctrine. And I'm going to say that, and I mean it. Boyke Pachter says that to teach correct principles, to keep true doctrine, will change behavior quicker than the study of behavior will change behavior. So teaching correct doctrine is what will fortify our children. So I'm saying that. I mean it. I will tell you the doctrine to teach, and then I'm going to go tell you all the rules. Because we want them to understand doctrine, and that's the core of their testimony should be based on doctrine. When we set rules, which I'm going to tell you, some, then rules are just there to be broken. It's not, we want to teach the why. Why do we believe in man and women? Why do we believe that you need to get married? Why do we believe that we shouldn't get divorced? Why do we believe? It's the why that creates energy and power in the doing. And the why for teaching morality in all of its forms, whether it's media, whether it's physical, the why of teaching morality is the doctrine of the family. It is the plan of salvation. It is the doctrine of the family. So we teach the doctrine of the family. So if you're teaching continually by the Spirit that families are eternal, that the earth was created so that we could have families, that we will go into exaltation with our families, that's our goal, that's what we're striving for, that we can only be sealed for eternity if we're clean and pure and have those children sealed to us. So then do you see what this is going to wipe out? Immodesty and movies that we shouldn't see, and more commitment to marriage as a husband and a wife. I mean, do you see? It's all in the doctrine of the family. Now, we don't teach that very much. We teach tithing, we teach go to church, we teach a few things, and we teach a bunch of rules, but we don't teach the doctrine. And it is teaching that doctrine with real intent that energizes and invites the Spirit and fortifies ourselves and our children. So teaching the doctrine of the family is critical, and to do it over and over and to tie principles back to that doctrine, always coming back and tying it to the truth of that doctrine. And that is the reason why this earth was formed and why the Savior came and died. That is the reason that we could have eternal families and eternal progression. That's why it was done. And that is the doctrine that we need to teach with real intent. And we all would sit here and believe it, and we agree with it, but we don't teach it. We don't tie things back to it. We don't make it central in our family and in our lives and in our teaching. Instead, this is Elder David B. Haight, we sit idly by, watching as an insidious stream of profanity, vulgarity, demeaning behavior, a mocking of righteous ideals and principles invades our homes and our lives through most types of media, teaching our children negative values and moral corruption. We then become upset when our children perform differently than we would wish, and social behavior continues to deteriorate. So we let this in, and then we're surprised. It's the mole crickets. Oh, how come you're acting this way? But what's on TV, and what lyrics are we listening to in music, and what's going on the phones and the media? So I cannot express enough the importance of teaching doctrine, teaching the doctrine of the family on all levels, so that it is, as we talked about learning the different levels, so that it's truly internalized and acted upon. Our children and us will live in a world where the church is going to be greatly persecuted. And it will be persecuted because of the standards. You will see many members of the church fall away because they won't be able to stay true to the standards and to the outside persecution that's going to come. I think we're going to see it on levels that we can't even imagine right now. Just like I couldn't imagine a cell phone, we won't imagine what kind of, just like him being kicked out of college, we won't be able to imagine the kind of pressure that will be put on members of the church because of their stand for the teachings of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I really feel there will come a time where the Savior will be so nullified in the world that then for us to hold to his teachings will set us apart as crazy. So that those times are coming. And without the sure foundation, that's why we're being counseled right now to memorize the living Christ. Because there will come this time where it will be our anchor. We will need it. Just like the proclamation to the family is the anchor for knowing where we stand in this world of gay rights. And it isn't that we're against any person, anyone, but we are against teachings contrary to that taught to us by the Savior. So with that being said, and with you, if you don't take any, I don't care. I mean, we're going to go through rules that I had in my family and kind of share them with you. You don't have to do any of them. But I want you to understand their purpose. And then you figure out what you need to do in your family to meet the purpose. So we need to teach the doctrine of the family. And if you teach it correctly, you will have taught morality and modesty and all of the things that we're going to cover. And you would have taught it in a positive way. With that being said, our children still need guidelines. They want to know, okay, where's the line? I'll go to the line and I won't go over it, but please tell me what's the line. And so sometimes they need kind of visual guidelines to help them along so they can figure it out. So that's kind of what we're going to go over for a while. And then I'm going to turn some time over to Andrea. We'll talk about these guidelines, and then we're going to talk about some generics on media and guidelines for media and how to use it wisely in your home. And then Andrea has some fabulous links and things that she's done with her family and setting up contracts and whatnot for media that I really asked her to share with us. So that's kind of where we're going to go. So let me just kind of go through some of these. Refrain from vulgar language.
Are these listed in the syllabus?
I think they are.
They're on page 6.
On page 6. Yep. Most of them. Specific guidelines. I'm not sure what's in there. So follow along. You might, my list is this long. So I think there might be a few things.
We'll add to it.
There's a blank space, so feel free. But most importantly, write down what the Spirit whispers to you during this time. Not necessarily what I'm saying, but what it's telling you. So here we go. Refrain from vulgar language. We teach our children not to swear. Don't swear. Don't take the name of the Lord in vain. Don't use certain words. But any language that will chase away the Spirit is termed by Elder H. Burke Peterson said, any language that makes the Spirit leave is vulgar language. And we need to be careful not to use vulgar language. And then Elder Peterson said that vulgar language is anything that would make that which is sacred, meaning should be kept holy or should be looked at as a gift from God. Anything that is sacred, anything that is of a sacred nature should, and we talk about it in a more demeaning way, that's vulgarity. So he said vulgarity is referring to body parts or functions in a negative way. Now you think about words that the kids use, and maybe some of you, when you're really frustrated and really angry, and see if any of those words have to do with body functions or body parts. And a lot of them do. So those are inappropriate. They're vulgar. They're vulgar. Or he said anything that has to do with body parts or functions, or anything that holds sexual matters in less than its sacred and holy place. So that may not be a word, it may be a conversation. And anytime we speak about sexual matters in less than its holy place, then it's vulgar. Now, take that to the movies you watch. Does it take sexual things and put them in less than a sacred form? If it does, then it's part of vulgarity. So that was an interesting definition by Elder Peterson. Next, now some of these you will go, but think about them, ponder on them. Never give or accept a back rub from the opposite sex. Now, this happens as they get into be young men and women, and they go on a water ski party up at the lake, and then afterwards they're eating food, they have, and a guy will sit down on the bench, and the girl plops up on the table behind him and starts giving him a back rub. And it doesn't matter if he has on a shirt or he doesn't have on a shirt. Our bodies are not to be touched by someone else. And so we need, and because it's we have, dare I say, very aggressive girls in this day and age. They used to be more
Like you.
like me, refined, look, no. But they're very aggressive now. And it used to be that the boys did all of the initiating, and now girls do it. So teach your girls, you got to teach your girls as well as your boys that back rubs are inappropriate, as well as they go to somebody's house and they do these hanging out things, they do not lay next to the opposite sex. So they'll be laying on the floor watching a movie. They'll say, "Mother, what are you talking about? We're just laying there watching the movie." I don't care. You do not lay anywhere next to the opposite sex when you're young. It just causes arousal. It is wrong. And so you'll have your son or your daughter, you say, "Well, what do you want me to do? I was there first." And my answer to my children, sons or daughters, was always, sit up. If you're sitting up, you're okay. So just sit up. So it's not as hard as they want to make it. But these are things that because everybody does it, and because they think it's innocent, and they start doing it innocently, it can lead. And so we're trying to prevent the mole crickets, not treat for it after they've come. Never go into the bedroom of the opposite sex. That is, they'll go over to a friend's house, or when they go to college. This is critical at college. Your boy shouldn't be visiting a girl in a dorm and going to, half of them don't even live in dorms or apartment. They should never, ever, ever go into the bedroom of an opposite sex. And so you'll say, well, okay, that's good for when they're not home. And I say, no, as they grow up, not toddlers, but as they get to be a little bit older, they need to stay out of their brothers or sisters' bedrooms. And the reason being, if you have normal daughters, they don't pick up after themselves. And there's all kinds of their underwear and who knows what else laying all over their bedroom floors. And it doesn't matter if it's a sister. Those things tend to be stimulating to young men. And so you don't want your teenage sons going into girls' bedrooms. And that training and teaching should start in the home. Should start at home. Dancing. I don't know if you notice, kids don't date anymore. But occasionally, they have about 2 dances a year that they'll actually date. And they go to, and the prom and homecoming. But our youth don't know how to dance anymore. In the olden days, we used to dance. We would do dances. The waltz or the foxtrot or the tango or the cha-cha or whatever, or the swing. And 2-step. I mean, you do a dance. Now they just stand out in the middle of the floor and hang on each other on a slow dance. And on a fast dance, they just stand out on the floor and do gyrations. I don't know what it is. They have an aerobic experience out there. But, oh, I can see some people watching this again. But anyway, as you're preparing your children to go to dances, and again, I don't care if it's boy or girl, you need to teach them that they don't just hang on each other so you have bodies to bodies. There needs to be space. In my day, 100 years ago, we say you ought to be at least be able to get the Book of Mormon in between you. So you should not be touching. You should not be touching, because those, and that also goes with full body hugs. Our youth are very prone to that right now. They'll come running across the chapel or at school, they come running across the street, and it doesn't matter if it's, and the girls are attacking the boys a great deal this way. And they run up to them and just grab them and hug them. You say, what's wrong with that? Because it's full body contact, and that's not appropriate. So
you tell your boys to do that.
yeah, and I had some very, very, very popular boys, and the girls loved hanging on them. And I would say, what you do is, as you see them approaching, you turn sideways and you can give them a side hug. Just a side hug is fine. Handshake's better, but they won't do that. So, a side hug is fine. And they'll start to get the message that you don't do that. Does that make sense? But you take control of it. Don't let them govern you. You take control of you. And it's very important. Limit, and we'll talk about this when we talk about the screens, but limit the excessive time in texting, chat rooms, on cell phones, where Instagram, really watch and check that. Modesty, dress modestly. I must admit, I am frankly shocked at the way some of our women dress.
I am too.
In the temple?
Running, exercise.
How do you, like most of our girls wear too short of dresses?
Mhm.
I mean, too short. How do you, if you've already gone to the bishop and tried to clear it up, what do you do in that situation? My boys hate it. My boys literally hate it. But
Well,
what do you
the
do?
best thing that would happen is if the boys went up to one of the girls and said, that length skirt is really uncomfortable to me.
But
But
what
they
about
won't.
the day and age where they offend people? Everyone's offended by anything you say now.
They
Because
are.
I want to go up and say, have you ever thought about what this does to a young boy?
And their answer is no.
It's really cute.
And they don't care. Actually, they kind of like the attention. But it's wrong attention. And they don't understand that the attention they're getting is lustful attention, not I like you as a person attention, because I don't even see you as a person. I see you as a body walking around.
My question would be, though, why doesn't, at least in our state, they do not address morality. They do not address modesty. That's it. Modesty. They don't. They get up at the pulpit, and they've done this 3 times last year. We're not going to tell you what to wear. Yes, tell them what to wear. Women do not wear short dresses and leggings under them. That is not appropriate for the garment. That is not a dress. Tell them, why are we so offended by hurting people instead of tell them? Because that reminds me of the scripture in Nephi that says, by the truth of them will take them to the very core. And it just makes me angry, because I'm thinking, how am I supposed to teach my boys who are most prone to this, that this is not appropriate, this is not, but yet you can't teach the girls because the women come into church with the same thing. Why is the church so afraid, at least out in Caldwell, they are so afraid to stand up at the pulpit and say, you do not wear this to church, you do not walk in church. Or another thing really offends me when people come to church with blue hair. That just really offends me. I do not think that is reverence in the Lord's house.
But you have to let everyone have their
I know,
agency and their experiences dances and you teach your boys because they're gonna get it not just at church.
But
you
why
teach
don't
your
we teach
boys
it from the pulpit? That's my question, is why don't we teach it from the
The
pulpit?
youth leader should be teaching that. But it's also, you can't tell the youth leaders how to.
Go
do
tell the
it.
bishop you want to be Young Women's president.
Yes.
I think a lot of it is yeah, they're taught in the home. I mean, if parents are allowing their children to leave the house in that.
And your parents that have.
And
Or
then
they're putting it in
and
their
then
backpack and they're changing when they get to.
So what we're saying is you need to send this class to whoever you want to send it to. But modesty and dressing, and we're going back to the snake, the rattlesnake. So you have a daughter that's going to prom and can't find anything but a strapless dress. And so you say, oh, well, it's just once, and you're young, and that'll be okay. You know, you're picking up the snake. You're picking up the snake. And so later on down the road, there will be consequences for making those choices. I have a daughter who has some really handsome boys, really good-looking boys. And so if a girl came to go out to one of these dances with her sons and wasn't covered, she had sweaters for them. And she just plain told him, she said, you know, you just can't go out with my son unless you cover up because I don't like what it does to him. And so we may have to take the initiative. She was also in the Stake Young Women's Presidency and did the same thing at stake dances. She took a whole armful of sweaters and donated them around. And so, you know, hopefully we have people that will do that. Part of the blue hair, the tattoos, is because we're accepting all kinds of people into the church and we want them to feel loved. But with that being said, we become the core who had better be setting the good examples. Our clothes had better be modest. And the things that, now, when do you start teaching modesty?
When they're young.
When they're a baby.
When they're a baby.
My
There's one standard. There's one standard. The garment is the standard. And it's the standard for a 2-year-old. And it's the garment for a 22-year-old and a 92-year-old. So we start teaching, it's pathetic when somebody is called on a mission or is getting married in the temple and has to replace their wardrobe. You know, that shouldn't happen. We should be, particularly in this day and age. Now, the other problem is there's no distinction between an adult and a child anymore. We all wear the same thing. You know, grandma and 15-year-old granddaughter are wearing the same styles. It used to be grandma wore nylons and the pearl necklace and the dress all the time and the little high heels, Leave It to Beaver. And, of course, we don't do that anymore. But it's also that we're not necessarily setting appropriate guidelines in trying to feel young and look young. Too many sisters are trying to dress way too young. You can dress appropriately, stylishly, cute, wonderful, and still be modest. There's enough clothes out there that you can be modest, if that's your goal. Sunday dress. Sunday dress. It should be a Sabbath day dress. And I just think that we need to, you know, Elder Holland said, I love it. He said, don't wear beach attire to sacrament meeting. And I think he had total reference to flip-flops. So, you know, I don't necessarily think you have to stay in a white shirt and tie all day. But I think you need to dress appropriately all Sunday, not just Sunday sacrament meeting, but to maintain so that you feel like that day's different all day. Now, what you choose to do that in your own home, you know, that's enough said. No tattoos, no body piercing. We know that. Pornography. Andrea will talk a lot about that. And internet. Kissing. I just want to do a little bit of kissing. I mean, no, but I didn't sound right. Discussing kissing. It was very interesting. I had a daughter that went over to BYU, Idaho, when she graduated. and she was called to be in the Relief Society presidency over there. And the bishop took her in, and did an interview with her. And one of the things he said is, have you ever French kissed? Because if you have, you need to repent. And fortunately, she could say no, she hadn't. But our youth feel like pretty much anything goes. Anything goes short of having sex. Anything else goes. And they talk about it, and they, unfortunately, it has become, now see, if you're teaching this sacred doctrine of the family, none of this is going to be there. Do I think that they should never kiss? I wouldn't say that. But here's the line. They like to know the line. And I'll give you the line. How far can I go? How far before I have to go see the bishop? Because I'm going to go right up to that line. So tell me where it is. Tell me where it is. And it is at arousal. If kissing causes those sacred emotions to be aroused out of the contents of matrimony and marriage, then you are abusing those sacred emotions. And so, I had a grandson that says, man, holding her hand makes me feel like that. I said, don't hold her hand. Those are sacred things. So though I had a couple of sons who went to the altar to be married and had never kissed a girl, that was the only and first and only girl that they had ever kissed, I don't necessarily recommend that. But I do recommend being holding your kisses as a sacred gift that you will give to your spouse. And obviously, no oral sex, no making out, no petting. Those are old-fashioned words, and they have some weird new words that they use for it, but same principle. I think you know the grandma stuff. You can get it. Another one that really makes me unpopular, I like to give you the unpopular ones. President Hinckley and President Kimball both said no steady dating. Okay, so we look at it now and say, well, okay, we don't date. So I guess we're not steady dating because we're not dating. So yeah, we're just hanging out. So let me translate into 2018 what that means. It means no pairing up. No pairing so that you are looked at as a pair. Now, I think they call that dating nowadays. Is that right?
They just say boyfriend, girlfriend.
They say going out.
Going out is what they say. Going out. So that means that the two of us, we're not dating, meaning going out on dates, but we're exclusive. Whenever we are at any gathering, whenever we are together, whenever you're at school together, you're together. If they're at church, they're together. It means that everybody in their mind has put the two of you together. So the prophets had said none of that until you are ready to be looking for a spouse. So my feeling is that would be after high school. Probably. And I would say after mission. When you come home, you're in college and you're ready to think about the possibility of getting married, that's when you start looking for somebody that, and you may go through 2 or 3 different people, kind of hang out with this one and say, no, that one's wrong, and hang out with this and no, that one's wrong, and do it this and that one's wrong. So, and in those periods, if you kissed one of those, I don't, you might want to try it out and see. Maybe they don't do anything for you. But you have to be careful. Now, I have a grandson who's I think he's just about ready to get engaged. He's found someone he's very interested in. He's doing it all appropriately. He's doing great stuff. And my counsel to him, and I'll just throw it out there on the table, this is not a commandment. It's my counsel, is that I said, once you get engaged, absolutely no more physical contact, no more kissing at all until you get married. Because once you have given yourself to each other and in being engaged to say we're signed up together, you feel more free to give more freely of yourself, and it is wrong. It is wrong. So I said, you will feel more intense, you will feel stronger, so don't do it. And then we need to teach, train. Oh, we've got to do a better job of teaching our youth of the sanctity of marriage. You know, because we don't teach this correctly, we say, no, 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 no. Okay, you walked through the temple, you said yes, and now, yes, 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 yes. They've already conditioned their emotions to shut down at a certain thing, and it's not good, and we shouldn't. So then they get married, and some of them have a very difficult time adjusting to a happy, sexual, intimate relationship. And they shouldn't. If we're teaching this on the foundation of the doctrine of the family, that the whole purpose of doing this is so you can have this. This is the reason. This is the beautiful part. This is the wonder. This is exciting. Then we should be teaching this not in a negative, but as so that you could be a gift. You could be a gift to this one person that you choose to spend eternity with. So we need to do a better job of teaching this so you're not bad and evil and wicked, but you are pure and sacred and holy and a special gift to someone who wants to have you for eternity. Okay, no sleepovers. Except at grandma's house. No sleepovers. There are, and if you want chapter and verse, it's the talk by, it's called Courageous Parenting by, I think it's Larry Lawrence. I want to say Larry Lawrence. Courageous Parenting. And he specifically talks about sleepovers. You don't hear that a lot, but I was happy when he said it, because I was saying, now I can quote prophets. I mean, I felt that way for a long time. Good things do not happen with sleepovers. When kids get tired and silly and there's no parental around and they have phones, good things don't happen. So, no sleepovers. Okay, I just want to do the W's, and then I'm going to turn over to Andrea about the media and technology. The W's are, and somebody asked about this online the other day, and I'm just going to tell you what the W's are. The W's need to be taken care of whenever any child wants to go anywhere, at any age. So these W's are going to start at birth. Now, of course, your little people, you're going to take care of the W's. But as they get older and they start having play dates and you are giving them time with other people, which I also would monitor very carefully. The W's are, and they have to, with my children, they had, when they were asking me if they could go anywhere, they had to present the W's. If they couldn't give me the W's, the answer's no. The answer's no until I can see the W's. And if your friend comes and asks me, the answer's no. Period. So I am not negotiating with your friends. I'm negotiating with you. And so that's one of the reasons my children's friends didn't like me so well. They would always say, oh, but if I go and ask your mother, she'll say yes. My kids would say, oh, no, she won't. That's a guaranteed no. Let me go do it.
And I didn't get to ask either in front of a friend.
Yeah, no.
My mom
It's a private conversation. It's between me and my child. Okay, the W's are, who are you going with? Where are you going? When are you leaving and returning? And what will you be doing? And if the thing is, oh, we're going to watch a movie, then I want to know what movie. And if you change the movie, you had better let me know. And if you're just going to go hang out, the answer is no. So just guidelines. Okay, Andrea, I'm going to turn you over to media, and then we'll close.
Okay. There are a lot of things that I did with media in my home. One of the things that I want you to think about on your Ponder Pad, though, would definitely be, what are your reasons for having a filter or protections on your internet? When I first started out, mine was out of fear and out of being afraid of losing my kids and not having them with me. And I had a lot of people that told me that I was too strict for way too long with my kids. And I spent a lot of time in prayer and at the temple and talking to my husband. And we agreed for our family and our home that we wanted to err on the side of caution, that we were willing to take that chance. And I was going to say the same thing with the war chapters in Alma. Those are huge. There's a ton of stuff. And so if you would reread those, thinking about them as your children and as Satan attacking them, and what are you doing as the captain to protect them, then it makes a lot of difference. In Alma 48, it talks about preparing in times of peace, and it talks about the reasons why. And so he said the reason why he did it was preparing to support their liberty, their lands, their wives, their children, and their peace, that they might live unto the Lord their God. And that's the same thing that we want with our families and our children. And that was his reason why, that was Moroni's reason why he did it. And then he talks about not stopping, that he didn't stop making preparations even after war. The one that I just found recently, though, that I really liked and that really hit me was in Alma 43. And for me, it was Alma 43, 37 through 38. And for me, this is the reason why I have filters. And it was really nice to be able to see it, but this is the reason why I have filters. The work of death commenced on both sides, but it was more dreadful on the part of the Lamanites, for their nakedness was exposed to the heavy blows of the Nephites, with their swords and their scimitars, which brought death at almost every stroke. While on the other hand, there was now and then a man fell among the Nephites by their swords and the loss of blood, they being shielded from the more vital parts of the body, and the more vital parts of the body being shielded from the strokes of the Lamanites by their breastplates, their arm shields, and their head plates. To me, if you protect them as much as you can, you will still lose some of them. They will still make mistakes, and there will still be problems. There just will. But to me, that was my reason right there. If you think about having a very small child, and you live on a busy street, a 4-year-old, you would not just allow them out in your front yard to do whatever they wanted to do. You just wouldn't. And so you would sit down with them and you would talk to them about, what the dangers are. There's cars that are too fast. There's things that we can do. You talk about safety and precautions. And then when they were little, you would still be outside with them. You would not be on your phone. You would not be distracted. You would be watching every single thing that they do, because even though they mean well, does not mean that they're going to always make the right choices. So for me, that was kind of my jumping off point. That was kind of my starting point. So I think that there are several things, and again, practices versus principles. You need to do it. These are my practices, and you can use which of them you would like to use. Teach your children about the internet. So teach them how to search for questions online. The best way to do this is to ask even your little tiny kids. Like I have a 6-year-old that we did this one night. We sat down, we said, where does a leopard live? And so then we looked it up online on purpose to show her how we could find that, and how to look for 2 or 3 different sites that were very, very appropriate, or that were reliable, how to determine which ones of those were reliable. And it's really, really fun, and she really enjoyed it, and we went through and did several different things like that. And it was funny because she would start coming to me and saying, well, what about this? And it was things that she didn't know, but that's exactly what our kids are going to do, and that's what they're teaching them to do at school, is to find somewhere to look. So we need to teach them how to do that, and how to search for it, and to know how to find the answers, and to know if they're right. We need to teach them how to search images online. From the time that they are little and they start putting together projects, or any of those kinds of things, any presentations for school, any of those kinds of things at all, they have to have pictures in them. They always have to have pictures in them. So one of the things that I do with my kids is we sit down and we try it. We look for a picture. We're like, let's find a picture of a face. Well, again, you can see how very quickly that you can get into pictures that are very not appropriate. So my rule was that they were never to scroll more than 2 scrolls. That was it. And if they went any further than that, if they could not find what they wanted in that, they better change their search term, or they better change to clip art, or they better change to black and white. And we went through all of those different things. Well, that one doesn't really work. How about this? And so we would try it. And we did it with lots and lots and lots of different things. And we even did it with, and it sounds really funny, but we even did it with things like we had them search for a chicken breast. Okay, so you think about it. We had them search for that, and you can see how terms would come up and pictures would come up that you do not want. And people do that on purpose. But I did that with my children, with my boys. And I warned them ahead of time, and we talked about what they could see. And I said, this is something that you can come in contact with. I want to show you very briefly what will come up. And we did a search, and immediately my boys were like, whoa. And we were like, great, you understand. Like, that's where it comes from. You were searching for a very, very reasonable thing. But there are things that are very inappropriate out there. So teach them how to search for images. Another one that we always did is pornography comes in many, many, many different forms. For boys, a lot of it is visual. For girls, a lot of it is reading and books. And so one of the things that we always did is I have a lot of different websites and things that I use, and I can post them online if you want me to. But one that we always go to before I let my kids read books is we go to goodreads.com. They have a lot of book reviews on there, and if you start marking books that you like, then books that you like, that you've read, that you rate, after you have so many on there, then they start giving you suggestions of other books that fall in those kinds of categories. So it's really, really good for those kinds of things. We also, before any of my kids can watch a movie, whether it is at school or at home or anything, it does not matter where it is, we go on commonsensemedia.org and we check out the movie. Always, 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 always. One of the things that I would do is, as a parent, I went on and I looked at the last 10 movies that we'd watched with our kids. And I read the reviews, and they have them broken out by violence, by positive messages, by drugs and drinking, all those different kinds of things. They have them broken out in all those different categories. And even under the sexual stuff, like even if you put in a cartoon thing, if they kiss in the cartoon, that goes on that list in Common Sense Media. So you know exactly what it is. If there's language, they give you examples of what you're going to hear. For the vulgarity, all of those kinds of things, you hear those, and they put them in the description in Common Sense Media. So what I would suggest is, if you have movies that you're thinking, that might be a little bit iffy, I would go online and read the review. They have an app that you can do as well. I don't like it as well, but you can use it. They also do reviews for TV, games, apps, websites, things like that. I don't necessarily use it for that, but we always, always, always use it for the movies. And if we cannot find the movie on there, my kids don't watch it. And if we find the movie on there and there's things in it that are inappropriate, my kids don't watch it. Once they started getting in high school, of course, or in middle school even, the kids, they watch movies all the time at school. And the teachers have to send you a note and say, can you let them watch this? And they wanted me to sign one at the beginning of this year for my daughter that says they can watch any movie that is under a PG-13 at any time that we choose to let them. And I said, absolutely not. You email me every single time, and I want to know the movie. And they were watching some Civil War movie in just 2 weeks ago, some Civil War movie. And we went on Common Sense Media and looked at it, and I read it, and I was not super comfortable with my daughter watching it, but I figured she is almost 14. I read her the review, and I said, you may choose, and I will support whichever choice you make in this particular thing. She thought about it. I mean, it took her a while to think about it. And she finally came back and told me that she was not going to watch it, and it was because of language. And it was a Civil War movie. So, you are going to hear language. But to the teachers and to the other students, that was appropriate because of the setting that it was in. For my daughter, for her, she did not feel like that was appropriate for her. So in those particular cases, then I just wrote her a note and said, nope, give her a different assignment. And for 3 days, she sat in a different classroom by herself. She was the only one out of her 8th grade that did it. I was super, super proud of her for doing it. If you go online to the Boy Scouts Cyber Chip program, this is a new one that the Boy Scouts have. It is amazing, amazing, amazing. They have things broken out by grades, by age. They have little video clips. They have little things to talk to your kids about, all about computers and internet and all kinds of stuff. It is really, really, really good information. I would also go online and teach, go to the Idaho Attorney General's office, and they have a site on there that is internet safety. And there are a lot of really interesting things that are on there. And we went through this with our kids, with our boys, especially when they were younger, and it's time to go through it again with my daughter. But they talk about things like on your phones and your digital cameras, that you need to go into the settings and turn off the GPS setting on it, because every time you take a picture, and you guys should check it out because it's pretty crazy. Every time you take a picture, it tags your GPS location on that picture to the spot you are in your room. So if your kids are posting selfies of them from their rooms, that is being posted online with their location, and people can find them in your house, in their room. It is not cool. You also, one of their other suggestions is to wait until you are home from a trip before you post anything about your trip. To not use your children's full names online, but to use a letter for their name, or a first initial. To be careful about how you post pictures that have identifiable objects in them, like school mascots or school names or teams or their school uniforms, any of those particular things, to be very, very cautious about those kinds of things. Those all about me quizzes that you see on Facebook and Instagram, do not answer them. Do not answer them. They have things on there like, what was your first pet? And they're all the security questions that people have that they put on your first grade teacher. And people are putting them out there. And we need to talk to our kids about not doing that. Like, it is not important for every single person to know that. It is important, and I do print them off, and I have my kids answer them at home because it's interesting to see what their answers are. I do not allow them to post them online ever. And my kids have been told that if I find things like that they have posted online, their privileges are revoked. Like, they're just gone. I'm just not doing it. You and them both need to ask for permission for posting pictures or tagging others in pictures. To this day, even as old as my kids are, I cringe every time my siblings post pictures with my kids on them. Every time, without fail. And it still makes me mad, and I still tell them to take them down. And my kids are older, and I still do it because I just don't approve of it. There are occasionally things that I do let them do. Never, ever to give out personal information of any kind to anyone, online especially, to ask permission every single time. And it doesn't mean like general permission, but every single time they go into a chat room to ask permission from a parent. Every time. To only comment on things that you could put your real name on. Not a screen name, but your real name. So we talk often to our kids about how they need to like, their name stands for something. And we talk to them about how they shouldn't be posting anything if they can't put their real name on it. If they don't want somebody to know that it was them, they should never be posting it. And to never meet up with anybody that they've met online. Another one that's really big right now is understanding the abbreviations that kids use in their texts and online. There is a website online called urbandictionary.com. Check it out, but just be aware. There are a lot of things that you think are perfectly innocent that are not, and that your kids are saying that are not. Check it out. It's pretty educational. So if your kids say something or text something or have an abbreviation, my kids better be able to tell me what it is, and they better be able to tell me what it means. And if they can't, they better not be using it. And if they can't tell me, we go online and we look it up together. And they don't like that often because then we have a little discussion about what else do we talk about at school. Another thing is, especially music is huge right now. Lyrics.com. I would go on lyrics.com. Anytime my kids came home, they're like, Mom, you have to listen to this new song. I'm like, great, let's pull up the lyrics and we'll listen to it together. And often my kids would be like, oh, never mind, not listening to that one again. Because once they actually hear the lyrics, then, and they actually see what they're actually singing and saying, it is not cool. And if you go back, I did this, and I was very careful about the things that I listened to. But I went back and listened to stuff that I listened to as a teenager, and I was like, oh my gosh, my kids are never listening to that ever. So just things like that. So just be aware that there are lots of sites out there. I can put these links online if you guys want me to do that. Cell phones and electronic devices. Go online and do a search for worst apps for teens, or apps that every parent should know for teens. If you do, I guarantee you it will scare you to death. I guarantee it will. And even if you think you know what's out there, do it anyway, because there are new ones that are coming out all the time. And there are new ones that have come out just even in the last 2 weeks from when I did my last search. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. So check them out. And then take your kids' tablets and phones and go through every single thing on their phone and on their tablet with them. Sit beside them and have them open up every single thing. And that sounds really stupid, but I am talking about even the calculator and even a text, whatever. It does not matter what it is. If it is on their phone, they better open it up and they better show it to me.
Are you doing this daily?
I don't do it daily, but my kids know that I can check it at any point in time. And often, especially after I go back and I check out the new stuff that's online, often we will sit down and do it. I don't do it daily. It would take way too long to do. But I would go through everything. They have apps that hide apps. They have apps that hide pictures. They have apps that look like something else that really are something different. They have so many different things. I go through and I literally, my kids are like, seriously, we have to open the calculator. I'm like, seriously, you have to open the calculator. Show me that you can do division on that calculator. And if they cannot, it's gone. We delete it. They had better show me how to do it. And if they can't even tell me what it is, we delete it off their phone without even opening it. We've done that too. So, there's things like that you can do. Know what is on your kids' devices, every one of them. And if you think you know, you really don't know. You really don't. I promise you, you don't. Even as close as I watch my kids, I'm still surprised at some of the things that they put on their devices. And they don't have their own devices. So the things they put on our family devices. Have an electronic device contract with your child. When I was getting to the point that I was doing this with my kids, I searched online for days and days and days, looking for cell phone contracts. I wanted one I could just print off and say, this is what it is. Could not find it. So I took all of them and I put them all together and I said, this is what I want and this is what I don't want. And I created my own. A few of the things that I have on it, and it is literally a contract. My husband and I sign one side and my kids sign the other side. And until they do not get to use an electronic device in our home, period. Does not matter the age. But we have some things on them, like they have to dock their devices on my microwave downstairs. Like they do not go in their rooms at all for any reason. It does not matter what the reason. There is no reason at all. They dock them at night downstairs. If I find that they have not been docked, or if I find that they are getting up at night checking them, they're gone. Like I will lock them in my closet. That's just, and my kids know, and I'm very, very, very upfront with them when they do that. We no electronics in bedrooms or bathrooms. In fact, I took a sheet protector and cut down the front part of the sheet protector, the plastic sheet protector, put a sign across the front that says no electronic devices in the bathroom. And they are on every one of my bathroom doors. For my company as well. I don't care who you are. If you are in my house, you follow my rules. And my brother came to my house and he walked back to my bathroom and he's like, are you kidding me? And I said, I am not. And I guarantee you, if you take it in there, I get it until you leave my house, period. Like it is not happening. And he was like, are you? And I'm like, try me, like really try me because I will take it. And so he put it in there, and of course he made this whole big fuss, like, do you see that I'm sticking it in there? You know, I mean, he was very, very adamant about it. But I am very adamant about it too. And in my home, my rules apply, period. If they don't want to follow my rules, then just don't be in my home. So no electronics during family time. Parents can check at any time with or without their child's knowledge. It does not matter the age. I have an adult son in my house right now, and he still abides by these rules. I can check his phone at any point in time. And if he will not let me, he does not get a phone in my house, period. If he wants a phone that I'm not checking, then he can leave my house. They have to pay for their own phone and their plan. I do not do any of that at all. They are not allowed to delete messages or browsing history without my permission. So if their device gets too slowed down and bogged down, they bring it to me and say, do you want to look through this really fast? Because I really need to clear it. And my kids have gotten to the point that they do that. If they clear it without checking with me first, they lose their device, period. Like, no questions asked. It doesn't matter what the reason is. I don't care. If they're deleting stuff off, sorry. I would make sure that you know their passcode to get into their phone at all times. If my kids ever changed their passcode so that I could not get into their phone, even if I had forgotten it, which has happened, even if I had forgotten it, they lose it immediately. I go online and I shut it down. It is off because that is not allowed. I figure if it is bad enough that you don't even want me in your phone, too bad. And again, like I said, practices. So, you know, do what you want to do, but this is what I do. I do not let them use them for alarms or MP3 players. Often you'll say, I'm only using it to listen to music. I don't care. It does not matter to me if they're using it for music. A lot of times they wanted to take their phone in their room or take the family phone in their room. They wanted to take it in there while they were cleaning their room because all they're going to do is listen to music. I'm like, great, put on your wireless headphones and put your phone on my kitchen counter. And they still, to this day, like my 18-year-old son took his in his room to clean his room yesterday. And I was like, knocked on the door, where's your phone? And he's like, I'm just listening to music. I'm like, great. He didn't even open his door. He slid it under the door and he was mad, which is fine. I don't care if he's mad at me. He slid it under the door and I looked at him and I said, I hollered through the door, thank you very much. And he listened to music the whole time he cleaned his room and his phone was not in his room, period. Like, it's just not. The other thing that I require at my house is if they have headphones, they only get one. I don't care. For whatever reason, if they are trying to block out all sound for everything, then they need to be somewhere else without their headphones. If I talk to them and they don't respond to me, they're in a lot of trouble. They're in a lot of trouble, and they dock whatever it is that they have. Something to be aware of, they do not need the internet to be online, to have texting apps, to have unfiltered internet. If there is Wi-Fi, they can have it. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. And Wi-Fi is everywhere. So even if you think, I'll just give them a phone that doesn't have any access, I guarantee they are online with unfiltered internet. They have a texting app, and I guarantee it. And it's just happening. Watch your MP3 players. They also will hold MP4s, which are movies that the kids can download offline and watch movies. So just know, whenever we order an MP3 player, it does not have MP4s. And any electronic device, it does not matter what it is, any electronic device still has all of these same things. They're still required. One of the things that concerned me, and so that was so those are some of the stuff that are on our electronic device policy. And so it lists all of those things out, and it talks about things like if my kids have a bad attitude, if they don't do their jobs, if their grades fall, if like all of those kinds of things. It talks about all of those first. And then on our side, it says that we agree to give them the chance to fail and to succeed. And we also give them the opportunity to renegotiate at any point in time, but until a new contract has been renegotiated, this one's valid. And we make them sign and date it. And we talk very strongly about this is what you signed. And if they break a rule that's on it, we pull out the contract and say, did you sign this? Did you agree to this? If you did, then this is the consequence. And we listed out consequences that were in them. So we did those kinds of things. One of the things that concerned us is TVs in bedrooms and hotels. Like, we don't have TVs in our bedrooms at home at all. TVs in bedrooms and hotels, rental houses, on vacations. And my husband actually came up with this idea, and it was amazing, so I'm going to share it because it's great. Sometimes when you pull the plug out of a wall, you can look, and sometimes there's a hole in the plug, like in the prong of the plug, there's a hole. He took a zip tie and zip tied a zip tie through it, and told my kids that if the zip tie was gone or missing, then that was it. Like, they lose all electronic privileges. They get to sleep in the living room. Like, there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that's what we do. So every time we go to a hotel, we pull the plug out of the wall, we stick a zip tie in it every time, because there's all kinds of stuff, and it is not filtered, and it's not okay. So that's one of the things we do. Set the amount of screen time for you and your kids. Watch your kids' grades. Both of my boys, their grades dropped a full point, a full letter grade from the time they started using cell phones, and they never went back up. So just know that, watch that. I tell my kids often that the phone that they have, because we have a family phone that's for the kids, their phone is for my convenience, not for theirs. Something else, and this is a big thing now, is with babysitters bringing cell phones into my home. My answer is absolutely not. Okay. I know some people don't agree with that. And again, it's just a practice, but here's the thing. They bring a phone into my home with my kids and me not there. I have no idea what's on their phone. I have no idea what filters are on their phone. They are there for my kids, not for their phone. And I tell them that when I call them to get a babysitter. I tell their parents that, and they are not allowed to bring their phone. I have a phone at my house that they are allowed to give to their parents for their parents to get in touch with them. I leave my phone number. They have constant access to whatever, but they are not allowed to have a phone in my house while they babysit. They can use my phone. I go through and I turn off the Wi-Fi in my house whenever I have a babysitter. All of my computers are password protected and turned off. My TV and internet, my TV, we have Cable One and we have Netflix, I think. Anyway, password protected, so my kids don't watch anything. They are not allowed on. If I do not have access, they're not allowed on. But I give my babysitters, like, you can watch any of these movies that I have. Here's the VCR, feel free. And that's what they can watch in my house. Some of them don't like it, and some of them turn me down babysitting, and that's okay. I don't care. Again, it's my house. So watch for warning signs of something being wrong. Their behaviors change. Watch for them making excuses for being alone in their rooms. Going to bed early, bad attitudes that are different than normal, being on edge, changing the screen or exiting out of something very quickly when you walk into a room or walk past them, being extra rude, talking back, treating their sisters differently. That was one of the huge ones that we saw with my boys, is they would start being very disrespectful, not only to me, but to their sisters, and they were mean. Moodiness, restlessness, those kinds of things. Watch for those kinds of things. You see those, something is going on, something. Having a device is a privilege, not a right. I tell my kids often that it's an issue of trust, that if they're responsible and I can trust them, that they'll have freedom. If they break that trust, it takes a long time to build it back. Know your child's weaknesses and their strengths. Again, I prefer to err on the side of being too strict rather than dealing with the other consequences that can come. Consequences still come. There are still problems. Put passwords on everything. Put security and Wi-Fi security and passwords on your Wi-Fi. Trust your gut. That's the spirit telling you something's wrong. On YouTube, put on the safe browsing. Doesn't always work because kids aren't always logged in. And so the YouTube safe browsing doesn't always work, but put it on anyway. And then internet filters and accountability software. They're two totally different things. So be very, very, very aware of that. A filter filters things coming in. Accountability software logs things that they are looking at or seeing or doing. Okay, very, very, very different things, and they mean very different things. So the two that I use, and we started out with one called netnanny.com. Love NetNanny. There's a lot of really, really good things. I love it for little kids. Love it for little kids. There's a lot of things I liked about it. It was easy to install. Once you put a parental password on it, they can't even delete the program off, whether it's on their phone or anything else. They cannot delete it off without your password. They can't delete it. They can't bypass it. I have tried. I guarantee you. I have logged in. I have gone through every possible means to get on, and they can't. They cannot bypass it. Not even going in through safe mode on the computer, that you cannot bypass it. It's great. So make sure it's different than the one you normally use. The thing I like about it is it lets you set different profiles for each different child based on their age. So you can change it for each individual child, which again, knowing their weaknesses and their strengths, that gives you some different things. You can add and remove privileges per child, not as a whole group or as the whole computer. You can access the account remotely, so online. If I'm anywhere, I can access it and I can make changes immediately. If a website is blocked, the kids can just click a button that says request that this website be unblocked, and it sends you a notification. At any point in time, if you are physically on location, you can override a warning with your parental password at any point in time. In fact, you can actually go on and deactivate, which I have done for my kids as they started getting older. Our computer was in our front room, and I would go on and deactivate our Net Nanny so that they could get on as long as I was sitting in the room. If I left the room for any reason, and it didn't matter if I was getting a drink or not, I locked the computer before I left. And then I would unlock it when I came back. And they were perfectly fine. I mean, they just knew that this is just what it was. I didn't even, and we have a big open like kitchen, dining room, living room, and that's where our computer is. I did not even go in my kitchen to get a drink to my sink without locking it. Like if I was not sitting by them or on the sofa, and this is when they were younger, but if I wasn't sitting by them, they were not. It also allows you to set times that it blocks times that they're on there. So like we set ours from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So it's completely blocked for internet time. We don't allow them on. And we block all day Sunday because we can override it if they decide they want to do LDS or family search or anything like that. It works on computers and cell phones, both Windows and Mac, Apple and Android. You can have lots of different seats for it. There's lots of different settings that you can set on it, so you can really, really, really tighten things down. Like you can actually have it block things based on things, or you can have it warn them. And if it comes up with a warning, they can click go ahead and go through. But it also tells you as a parent that they clicked through on that particular site. You can do allow, which allows them to go through. You can set it up so that it blocks all new apps. However, that part of it is not working right now because they're in the process of upgrading their things. So just know that too. They have lots of really good online reports. They can mask swear words. That part's really good. The kids don't like it for several different things. Well, we told them up front what we were doing and told them if they needed something that we were in the process of getting it to work right. And so there was a lot of setup that was required. It restricted a lot of things that they didn't need. When it restricts the time, it doesn't restrict their computer use, just their internet use. So if that's on their phones, like they could still get on their phones and play games that were already locally on their phone, but they couldn't, they can't get on the internet, so they can't search the internet and stuff like that. A lot of times it would block new apps that you were putting on, things like that. On the cell phone, it only allows you to use their Net Nanny browser, which crashes a lot. So just know that too. Your kids don't like it, but it keeps them off the internet. Anyway, they can get on for some things, and they don't like their friends to see that it's on their phone. I think that it works really, really, really good with little kids. I put it on my computer at home, and I block everything except for like 5 sites that I've already previously allowed. And I put those on the tab across the top, and my kids can go into those. But if they open up something and they learn to use the back button super fast because it'll pull up a blocked and it'll say, this is blocked. And they just learn to use the back button. But it lets them go into the things that I've allowed them to go in and see. It does work good with teens if you want to see what apps they have installed on their phone. It doesn't always work perfectly, but it will show you apps that they have installed on their phone, and you can kind of look them up and check them out yourselves that way. It does allow you to lock their phones, so like you can shut down their phone, their internet access, their apps. You can block all their apps so they can't get into anything without coming to you. So there were several times that I had to do that with my kids. If they wouldn't respond to me, I would block everything, all their apps. Didn't matter what it was, gospel library, the whole deal. I blocked everything. And they would have to come to me to have it unlocked. And then at that point, then we could talk. As my kids got older, it was really frustrating. And so we decided also that just like our Heavenly Father does for us, he teaches us and he helps us and walks beside us. And then he allows us the opportunity to make mistakes. So we decided we needed to do something else. And so we found another one called everaccountable.com. It is an accountability software. So know that it does not filter anything, okay? So if you put it on your phone, you put it on your computer, it will not filter anything. They can search for anything. They can pull up anything. Just know that. And you need to be very, very, very aware that that's what it does. I really struggled with putting that on my boys' devices and phones and things like that. I really had a hard time with that. But what happens is you set it up and you put in your address, like up to 3 addresses, as an accountability partner. And what it does is it allows them to have the freedom to do what they're doing, but also know that if they go into something they shouldn't be in, it flags and we get a copy of it. And so we know, and then we have a chance to talk to them. It also, they can deactivate it at any time. They can turn it off. If they do, it automatically sends their accountability partners an email that says they've deactivated this on this device, and here's everything up to this point. So they do that. You cannot lock anything at all. So you can't set time restrictions. You can't set apps that are allowed and disallowed. It's not a filter.
Do you have to pay for it?
Yes, it is.
Is it less than NetNanny?
It seems like it's a little bit less than NetNanny. You can actually run both of them side by side, and for a while we did. For a while what we did is we had NetNanny on the phones and we also had Ever Accountable. We told them so they both knew. And then what we did is we gave all the freedom possible that we could give on NetNanny, which did not allow them the internet, so they still had to use filtered internet. But it gave them all access to everything else, and then, but Ever Accountable logged everything that they did. And so then that allowed us to open up the freedom without getting rid of the filter to begin with, until we could see that they were making good choices. And that's part of how we introduced it to them, was we told them, you know, we're doing this because we want you to make good choices, and we're giving you the opportunity to. So we did that. It does not log things that are on Pinterest, which there's all kinds of stuff on there. Sometimes you can't, there's a lot of information in the reports that you have to go through. And it does flag some things, but there's a lot of things it doesn't flag. So you have to be really, really, really vigilant. Like, you still have to go through the reports. You have to allow time every night to go through them. It's a great app for older kids, for your spouse, for you, for all those kinds of things. One of the things I did like about it really well was that it actually logs the amount of time they spend in each app. So if they're spending it on a game or on Facebook or on the internet, YouTube, those kinds of things, any of those things that they were spending them on, it totals it up for the full week. And so I could go through and say, oh, you spent 16 hours on Facebook. Let's have a little talk about that. That's a little off base. So there were things like that were really good, but it gave me hard data, facts that I could take to my kids and say, this is what it's saying. You want to explain? You know, here's your chance. Know that your kids will make mistakes. They do. They do. It doesn't matter how well you prepare them. We also have in their contract that if they make a mistake and they know that they've made a mistake, and there's a big difference between making a mistake and sinning, choosing to do it wrong. There's a big difference between those things. And so we told them that if by some chance they made a mistake, and we knew that they would, we told them, you will make a mistake at some point in time. Everybody does. We told them in their cell phone contract that or in their electronic device, that it would go much better for them if they brought it to us than us going to them. Because that says, I did this wrong, I'm taking responsibility for it, here you go. And then it gave us a chance to talk about it. Okay, what are we going to do next time? Those kinds of things. So you can use them both together. I do really, really like it. We still have Ever Accountable. We still have NetNanny. We don't use both of them anymore on most of the devices, but the stuff that my youngest is on still has NetNanny. The stuff that my middle child, my teenager, is on right now, she has NetNanny and Ever Accountable. And the stuff that my husband and I and my oldest son have are Ever Accountable. So for me, they were just different stages along the way. One of the things that I've always tried to impress upon my kids is that trust is vital, especially in marriage, especially for my older boys. I was really trying to get through to them that it was super, super important. I told them that as long as they were in my home, they were expected to have ever accountable internet nanny on their phones. If they didn't, they were not allowed to have a device in my home. I didn't care what age they were. Does not matter. Because in my home, that's what I require. And that I would like them, even if they leave and go to college, when they leave and go to college, to leave me on as an accountability partner. Granted, I cannot force them at that point, but I would like them to leave me on as an accountability partner until the point where they get married. And then at that point, I told them that what I would like to see them do, and again, it still is totally their choice, but what I would like to see them do is I would like to see them turn over that accountability to their wife as a gift and as a sign of trust, and to leave it on their phones, and to simply say, this is my gift to you, and I'm trusting you, and I want you to trust me. I don't know if they will do it or not. We'll see. But it gave me the chance to, it gives them the chance to say, I'm making good choices. And here you go. So if you go back to that analogy of the child on a busy road, when they get older and wiser, they can make better choices. Eventually, they're going to have to learn to drive. So you're going to have to go through driver's ed with them, right? You have to teach them how to use whatever they're going to use. And even though they do driver's ed, and even though you're with them and they practice, they're still going to make mistakes. They're still going to do things wrong. And you go back and you reteach and you reteach and you retrain and you re-talk to them and you talk about it all the time. But what it does is it gives you, help give them the courage to keep trying and to keep going forward and to do it better. And eventually at that point, as my kids got older and older, so my boys now, the only time that I ever check up on them is when I just get that feeling that something's just not right, or their behavior changes, or things like that, when I think something's really wrong. And so at that point in time, when I feel like I'm being prompted, that's when I go check, especially. Doesn't mean that I don't spot check here and there, and I still check their phones even today. President Hinckley said this. This is one of my favorite quotes. And this is part of why I feel like I have the ability to do what I do in my home. President Hinckley said, "You are the guardians of the hearth. You are the bearers of the children. You are they who nurture them and establish within them the habits of their lives. No other work reaches so close to divinity as does the nurturing of the sons and daughters of God. May you be strengthened for the challenges of the day. May you be endowed with wisdom beyond your own in dealing with the problems you constantly face. May your prayers and your pleadings be answered with blessings upon your head and upon the heads of your loved ones." He gave that quote the same time he gave the proclamation on the family. So to me, that tells me that I am the guardian of my hearth. I am the one who helps my children create those habits, and that he is going to give me strength to be able to face whatever challenges I face with them. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ.
Andrea has some good stuff. Good stuff. Let me give you your homework. And let me just say, it's like driving a car. You don't just hand a child the keys because they turn 16 and say, have fun. You train them. And it's the same thing with the cell phone. Average, it's recommended in several of these things that I've studied and read that they don't get one before 8th grade. That if they need a phone, it's a dumb phone rather than a smartphone. And so, which they can still. And then I would recommend that before they get their smartphone, they go through a technology university, with simply a training program. Now, I'm going to give you the site for one. This is one that my nephew put together that is phenomenal. And it's just, they have to pass the courses. It's interactive. It's stuff they have to do. You can go online and request this. I think that in the beginning, you could just get it for free. But I think that she is charging now just for the cost of printing. So if you're interested, it's called Be Deliberate, capital B-E, capital D-E-L-I-B-E-R-A-T-E, at internalfilter.com, I-N-T-E-R-N-A-L filter.com. So, and this is fabulous because they have to read certain conference talks, they have to come back and return a report. It is all on a positive, it's very, 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 very positive. So it's just an option. Certainly don't have to use it, but you need to come up with some kind of training program that they have to do before they have a device. Now, if they already have a device, then I would require that they go through the training program now. And it has to be interactive. It's not you setting rules and they do it. It's you creating rules together and they do it. So I have a couple of things that I want you to do.
Sister Hannah, do you know how similar that is to the cyber chip for the Boy Scouts, the cyber training?
Well, it's more gospel-based, meaning they have to read certain conference talks and return a report on them. So in material included, it's as good, but it's more gospel-based, if that makes sense. Okay, I have a whole list of things I want you to do for your homework. So have fun. Okay, number 1. I want you to read the Lord's Standard of Morality. March 2000, it's not a conference talk, it's in March 2014, page 45. It's by Tad Callister.
What year?
2014. March 2014, page 45. And then I want you to go to the church website. You're gonna kind of balk at this. It's okay. Go to LDS.com. .org. Yes, LDS.org, church website, and then type in overcomingpornography.org, which is also the church. It's on the church website, but they have come up with 5 topics for family home evenings, and they are fabulous. My body is from God. The Spirit can help me choose good media. What should I do if I see pornography? Sexual intimacy is sacred and beautiful. The Savior desires to forgive and heal the wounds of pornography. It is fabulous. And pick one of those and do a family home evening. Pick one and do a family home evening on it. This is the one that I wanted you to see. This morality. This is the one that by Tad Callister. This is that article. So that's what it looks like. So you're looking at what it looks like. And then I want Andrea to post this link. And it's, I don't know where I got it. You put it up for the first time, but you'll post it. It's from Linda and Richard Iyer. And it's on use of technology and cell phones. So those are the things that I want you to read the talk, I want you to give one of those home evenings, and then I want you to do this link by Linda and Richard Iyer. It is very good. Very, very good. I am sorry we kind of went over. I think the information was fabulous. And so this is Satan's hotspot. This is his hotspot to our kids, and we have to be vigilant. But I bear you my testimony. The technology is not bad. The use of it is bad or good. It is essential in bringing forth what has to come before the Savior comes. In hastening the day, in getting our work done, I testify that it can be for a fabulous use as we teach it. These kids are bringing names to the temple all the time, and it's marvelous and it's wonderful, but we need to use it the way the Lord intended it. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.